In this video, we're going to be talking about using labels to find all the things that you need to find in your asset structure and spending a bunch of time to make a nice, clean asset folder structure so we're ready to import a whole bunch of assets in the upcoming videos. Now, I'm going to spare you guys the 4 or 5 hours conversation I've had with Ben and Mikey trying to figure out the best way for us to structure our assets, our folder structure, how we import, how we give assets to you guys as well. So we've got a little bit of extra complexity because we're trying to serve you guys and make sure you can follow along very well and that we don't change things up too much. But we've got a structure here for our assets. Our asset folder structure that is not going to serve us much longer as we move forward. And we also need to look at what the needs are on our project. So on your project, you're going to have various needs depending upon what particular hat you're wearing. Now, if you're wearing a level designer hat, what I find really useful is to be able to go find all of the prefabs in one spot and drop those into the scene. Say, okay, what do I need? I need a pillory. What is a pillory? Oh, it looks like a place where you put naughty people. Okay, that's great for Ben. We'll put him in the pillory. So I need one of those. And I need some spiked wall. I'll put that over there. And it might be that we've got 18 different types of walls. I need to put that in there. That's the medium spike wall. I need the large spike wall. So this is the set dressing. It's kind of like playing The Sims, isn't it? Maybe that's why I love being a level designer. When I put my level design hat on, it's kind of like playing The Sims. So we can create what we need to create. Whereas for Mikey, he's got a need to have things relatively close together so that he can see if I've got a castle, let's see, I've got the gallows. He needs to be able to see where is the texture for that, where is the material for that, what materials is it using, so we can expand different elements for the gallows. But at the moment, we've got the materials hiding down here in its own place, and then we've got textures somewhere else. So that's a little bit of a need. Another problem that we are starting to encounter is, this house here is using a particular texture. It's using a texture for the wooden plank, but we also want, where in my scene have I got something that might be useful to show you guys? Think around the back, there we go. But we're also using that texture because it's a really good texture. We don't want to create it again for this cart here. And then how do we structure that in here so that we don't accidentally go and say, well, the wood on the cart needs to be a little bit lighter. I'm going to just go change that texture. And then without realizing it, we've gone and changed the texture on the beam over on the house over here. So we're starting to get a few of these issues, and you guys are going to get these issues as your project gets bigger and bigger. And so I'm going to take you through what we're doing. Great example here is standard assets. What on earth does standard assets mean? And what do I find in there? At the moment, there's characters, there's a rollerball. Why do we have a rollerball? Well, Ben was using that as a projectile. and we've got all sorts of stuff jumping around. So we're going to have to clean this up over the next few videos. I think we'll be cleaning this up. But let's start. First of all, I need to just totally get rid of this blends and FBX folder. We need to merge things so that we have them all in the one place. We've got castle, characters, foliage, interior, materials, new, village. Okay, new's not so good because what does that mean? Materials not so good, what's that mean? So I'm going to start to just reorganize and categorize things here. What I'm going to do actually is I'm going to go for some easy pickings first before I dive into the hard stuff. I'm going to create a folder that is for our characters. As the very first port of call. So at the moment we've got enemies, we're starting to get NPCs, we've got the player. So I'm just going to start with that, create a folder, and the folder I'm going to create is characters. And soon Ben is also going to introduce to you, it's plonked it under player, which was clicked on, drag it up to assets, and characters now lives up here. Ben's going to start creating namespaces, and I think he's going to be using characters as a namespace. So under characters, is the player a character? Yes, the player is. And our enemies are our enemies' characters? Yes, they are. And if it wants to drop in there for me, ploink, there we go. Hold on. And you know what? We don't have any yet. This is breaking one of Ben's rules that he's particular about, which is create things when you need them. We don't actually have any NPCs yet, but I'm going to put NPCs in there. Ben, when you watch this video, don't yell at the screen too much. We're going to have NPCs in no time because I want to, maybe you know what? I think our healers might be NPCs, so we can put those in there straight away instead of having them hiding over here in this enemy spot, because our healer, technically it's derived from our enemy prefab, but I am going to drag this guy into NPCs. Boom, and there we go. Great stuff. So we can tidy that up a little bit more in the future. We've still got scripts in here. That's not too bad for now. And we've got enemy materials in here. Not too bad for now. What we're going to do at this point in time is we're going to grab all this stuff, all these materials here, and we're going to move them up into this enemy structure. We're going to remove some of our folder hierarchy, and I'll show you why in a moment. You might be saying, as I did a few videos ago, but I want to be able to see my guys nice and easily in the one spot. Why on earth would you go and put these all together, Rick? I'll show you that in just a moment. But this is a great example. And scripts as well, we're going to take all of these scripts, we're going to move them back up into the enemies folder. And then jump in here. We've got these two folders we no longer require. Delete those. Yes, we can. There we go. So under enemies in this one spot, we've got all of this stuff, good stuff in here. Now you might be saying, but what about just finding these prefabs? And this is where I want to introduce to you guys, if you haven't played around with it already, search by type. So you've got this lovely search bar up here for the assets. If we click on this search by type and click prefab, now that's going to push me all the way back to this higher, the highest level, which is assets. And I need to click back again on enemies. And so you can see in here, I've got the enemies and I can drop them in exactly as I was doing before, but I didn't have to go and create an intricate folder structure to do this. The cool thing is while I'm clicking on this prefab, so while I've got prefab selected as the type, then I can also go down here and say, what about in my world objects? It's still selected on world objects and I can find those and drop those in, which is really great. That helps me a lot when I've got my level design hat on. And if I want to, I can click back on assets and there is every prefab that we've currently got in the game. So it's giving us a lot of power when we use this particular aspect here. And because it's a search and it's pretty powerful, I could also say, you know what, I'm looking for that house prefab. And then I just type in the T:prefab house, or I've tagged it here. If you want to add a tag, then you can do it just by typing it straight in. Tag, what do we want to have as a mesh, for example? And then I see all the meshes in the game because it's tagged by that. And now I'm at the root level again. So while I've got tag mesh clicked, I can go down to see, what have we got environment? Well, there's nothing in environment. Gizmos, materials, scenes, standard assets. We've got a couple of things. Great. So I can find those meshes as I need to. So I'm just going to clear that. Go back up in here. So basically we're flattening our structure over here so things are a lot easier to deal with, and that when we get too many things in one place, when we have too many enemies, too many materials, too many whatevers, let me just do that using the tag of material, in here. I can see at the moment that's quite manageable. And if they're well named, black enemy, blue enemy, burgundy enemy, they're pretty well named. I can see quite clearly what's going on here with these materials. When we get too many materials, if I go click in this, that's not too bad as well. At the moment, I don't think there's a spot where there are too many materials. Maybe at this root level. So you can see if we just had all of the materials in one gigantic folder, which is something that we talked about doing, let's have them all in one place, then it makes this a pretty big area. It's a little bit too big. We would need to group these, I think, so that we are getting some value out of here. I don't want to have to, if I'm looking for house materials, I don't want to have to try to track down the search terms because they're not all going to be named, you know, house wood. This is named cart wood, but if it's cave entrance bricks, then that might be something that I want to have grouped with all of the other cave-related things so that I do have the power when I've clicked on material to go over to world objects, caves, and so on. Okay, so that's the structure of that. Let's keep going with our reorganization. If you guys want to reorganize as I'm doing, that's great. I'm going to give you a challenge at the end of this video where I ask you to tidy up everything and then start importing some assets. But for now, let's power through. I did the characters just now. Another quickie while I'm here, Ben would like us to name camera and UI to camera UI. So I'll do that now just so it's all done and tidied up. New, we're going to have to get rid of that in a moment and change it to something more meaningful. But let's go through, let's see what's next. Okay, world objects. Let's get our structure feeling good down here. So castle, we've got a bunch of prefabs, mini castle. I think castle I can grab from up here. I can grab all of our blends, so our blend files, and put them all right down with the other castle elements. I don't think mini castle yet needs, there's not actually anything in mini castle, is there? Okay. So if you find any empty folders, there's a naked folder. We'll get rid of that. Castle. What else up here in castle? Materials. Now materials are going to all go into the castles folder under world objects. So world objects, we're making a distinction between world objects and characters at the moment. We're going to need a few more. Environment is something that I can see. Environment and world objects kind of mean the same thing, don't they? I don't know why we've gone and put an environment folder. It's empty at the moment. Foliage, I think, what do you think, you guys? Environment or foliage for kind of living matter that's in the world. Let's call it foliage for now. Because environment in some game companies, this whole stuff is environment, you know, the buildings and stuff. So I'm going to get rid of environment. I saw gizmos is empty as well. We'll delete that. Materials, here's a bunch of stuff. We need to find where these guys live, but I'm kind of jumping around a bit now. We want to make sure we've completed castles. That's empty. Great. Castle is all done. Our goal is to get rid of this blend and FBX folder. Characters, we've got our one hero. Now, where should that character live? Should live in characters. Characters under the hero, I think, is what we're calling our player. So, yep, you can see our little farm boy there. Rotate him around a little bit. If you're not sure, if maybe you have your thingy, I don't know what this is called, actually, the preview, I guess. If it's down, then you can pull it up and see what's going on there. And I'll drag him over to player. Okay, that's good. So characters is now empty. And then foliage. What have we got under foliage? We've got some models in here. I think we're not actually using these at the moment in our scene, but I won't delete them. I'll let Mikey come in and delete them if he wants to delete them. And then we've got materials for these guys. So this is going to be under foliage down here. Here are the prefabs that we've created. You can see it's a prefab. So I'm going to undo all the hard work that Mikey did of putting these into their own separate places. We're going to merge it up. Like I said before, this is often the way that it works on a project where you have to iterate and evolve. Now, one thing I haven't talked about a lot is what happens when we have shared textures. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Okay, interior floor. I'm not sure what this is an interior for, to be honest. Let's have a look at here. It's a tile. It looks a little bit placeholder-ish. Is that a castle? You know what? I don't know where that belongs. So at this point in time, I'm going to put an other folder in here. Create folder, other. It's clearly a world object, but clearly doesn't make a lot of sense until we give it a home where it belongs. So I'm going to grab this, put it down into other. I'm sure Mikey has got some grandiose plans for it. Down into other, Blanc. Like I said before, the folder structure doesn't really change what goes on in our project because we can search and we can group pretty easily. But it's a way of just keeping it. It's another layer of organization that lets us see what's going on. Okay, so barrel, these are the materials, barrel, wood, crate. Now, one of the rules I want you guys to get into the habit of is if anything is selectable by type, then don't call it that as a folder. So this is redundant. We've got this thing called materials, but we can easily just go material, and we can do that same search anyway. So we don't have anything named material. We don't have anything named texture in terms of our folder structure. That's what we're trying to eliminate because we've already got a mechanism for that. So there's a little bit of work here to sort them out into the right spot. I'm going to come back to that once I've got my structure down here that I'm happy with. New, I don't know what these are. Delete that because I know this is something that Mikey's going to bring in and we will get that in the future. Now, village, this is a big one. These are all the village blend files. There should be enough space down here. We'll drop that into village, Excellente, and then under materials, these also should be all of the village. They're starting to become a little bit too many, I think, for the village, so we might need to do some breaking these out as time goes on, but for now, we'll put them all down into the village. Remembering that if we're looking for a material, and this is now a big wall of stuff, it might be a little bit too much we're getting into the village, particularly when we import the new assets, but then we might break it out into houses and into something else when it's meaningful to do that. But for now, we can search for tag material, and there we go. Yep, this is going to need a reorganization pretty soon because that's probably getting too many materials in the one spot. Okay, but we're doing well here, you guys. Materials, let's see if we can figure out where most of these are. Leaves is definitely foliage. Leather tan. This looks like character stuff. This is all character, demon stuff, character. So that goes into character. I'm not sure which character. We'll drop that into there for now. We can play around with that a little bit more later on. I think there's some shared aspects. So if it is shared, it might need to come up a level, saying that these textures here could belong to player or NPCs or enemies. And that means that if you see it here, there's a lot of potential dependencies on who can be using it. If we just put the devil skin into enemies, because I think we don't have the devil and the demon at the moment, but they're labeled in a way that pretty much says I am part of the enemies, then we know it can only belong to enemies. And I think this is our old enemy type stuff as well. Okay, so that's all right at the moment, and we were working through that. Editor, materials, scenes. Scenes is a little bit trickier. We've got some stuff in here. I'm going to leave these in. Okay, you know what I'm going to do is scenes is a bit of a, it doesn't mean a lot. It's the same name as what Unity calls it, but for us they're levels. So we're going to rename these to levels. And something about this that we just can't get around is that when we create nav mesh for Rick's Village, Unity will automatically create a folder that says Rick's Village and puts the nav mesh into it. We just can't get around that. So rather than fighting it, we'll leave that as a system. We'll have our actual levels at this higher level. I think we'll be able to grab them pretty easily and see what's going on. Of course, let's see what we can tag for up here. It's going to be tagged as scene. Okay, so we know them as scenes, this actual file, but the whole grouping is a level. So within a level, we have the scene file, we have particular assets that might just belong to that level, such as in Rick's Village, we have, get rid of that thing there, we have some of my reference images that I'd placed in there and some specific textures that I'm only using in my scene. Okay, that's fine. And then some materials as well that they were used to create the these particular billboards, I believe. That looks like the billboard stuff, Village Green. Okay, so I'm just going to drag these out. Following our new philosophy, we're going to put it up there. We won't actually have a folder called materials because that's not required. Okay, this is probably a good spot for me to hand over to you guys so that you can do a little bit of work and not just watch me moving around folders. Prepare your folder structure. So move the folders, group them how you would like. If you want to follow our structure, that's fantastic. Over to you. If you haven't been doing it already, jump in and rearrange your folder structure as you'd like. Okay, welcome back. I'll just show you, I'll keep going with my process here and we can compare notes. I'll speed up a little bit and do a little bit less explaining and more just kind of shoving and doing. So standard assets I'm going to leave for the moment. Utility I'm going to leave for the moment. We'll leave weapons where they are for now. World objects. Castle, yes, makes sense. Village, yes, makes sense. Foliage, yep, we're going to get more stuff in there. Materials, doesn't make sense. This all looks like village materials, so we're going to put this down in the village. Materials, we've cleaned all those up. Delete. And we have other great something in there. Textures. Okay, now textures, same thing. We need to move that into where it belongs. These look like they're village, crates, and fountain. The pine tree is foliage. Move these into village. Pine tree belongs in foliage. Nice and neatly. Pine tree, textures for foliage. Soon we might need to have a trees. Okay, not too bad yet. That's still pretty good. And then thatch, that's going to be a roof for our village elements. Houses in there. Textures, that should now be empty. Thatch is empty and pine is empty. So we can delete that. Good work, us. One less thing. Castle, foliage, other, and village. That's filling good in there. And these guys look like the last things. I'm going to say skin belongs to the characters. I think that's going to be under the player. Player has skin. Straw, wooden barrel is going to be village. Let me just keep this expanded. Wooden barrel village. See how easy that is. Drop it in there. Mushroom, leaves are definitely foliage. If you get this problem where you mouse over it and it won't let you put it in, that's probably because it's already in there. So this is a good example of us finding something that's duplicated. When you do that, this is a good way to find those duplicates. So if I go back to materials, is it this one? Foliage, yep, it's that one there. So we can just delete that because we've already got it. Pretty sure it's the same. And we're not using the mushroom yet as well, which we know. That one's the same. It might just be that they're named the same, in which case you need to be a little bit more careful than what I'm doing at the moment. Painted metal, I believe that's in the village. Straw in the village. Mushroom, does that one want to go in? Nope, so we've got those mushroom ones already. Leaves, foliage. Cloth, where are we using the cloth? Find references in scene. Not using the cloth at the moment, but we're going to assume it's something to do with the player as an option. And then brick fountain, find references in scene. It's on the fountain, obviously. Village, great. So we've got rid of everything in that materials folder. That feels good as well. It's all feeling a lot tighter, lot tighter now. I'm just going to pause. I'm going to put these into their respective spots so you guys don't have to watch me drop those in, and then I'll be back in a moment. Okay, something that's a little bit messy that I've had to do because I was having trouble dragging from materials into Village when something had the same name or Unity thought it was the same material. I've dragged all of the empty materials, the whites and the grays, although this looks like it might have something to do with it here. But anyway, I've grabbed everything and dumped it in this attention Mikey, which is a little bit naughty for now, but because I'm not the guy who created this stuff, I'm not exactly sure if this is the right cart iron or that's the right cart wood or why is it not working or where's its texture got to. So there's going to be a little bit of extra cleanup that I need his help with. But when I click on these materials and I say find references in scene, each of them doesn't have a reference in the scene. So either it's a double up that we had it in two places, or there's some other mishap, or it's for a model that I don't actually have yet, and we need to re-import those. So we've kind of got some stuff in here, and you guys have had access to this as well through our repo, some things that we haven't actually, you and I don't have exposure to. So it might just be a case of Mikey comes in and says, oh, okay, I'll just get rid of all these because I've got these assets hiding somewhere nicely in another branch, and I'll just import those in a package, and we don't need all those as well. But I need to just finalize this and put the remaining textures where the remaining textures need to go into the village. Those ones are all fine. Statues should be fine in the village. This is the guy, find reference, because you can see everything else is grayed out, but those ones are alive and living. And now if we go and select dependencies, these are the ones that we need. I'm going to put these down into pine tree. I can go into here, foliage, and the problem was up here, wasn't it? Up in here. I can get rid of those because I know that I've got them safely hiding down here under pine tree. Delete. And then go down to pine tree, and there it is all there. I can grab these all and put them into foliage, and that should drop in nice and neatly. Fantastic. Look at that for our problem solving. Don't need that folder anymore. We don't need to have them selected. And then that, I think, if we have a look at our folder structure here, it looks like we should be, yep, that's empty, that's empty. We can finally delete that. Oh my goodness, that took a long time, but very worthwhile. This is a much cleaner folder structure, and we're ready to roll. Okay, so that ended up being a lot longer process than I thought it would be for you guys on camera. So we're going to stop it here. And if you haven't yet finished your organization, go ahead and do that now. That's your challenge, is to get everything to the point where you're happy with that structure there. And in the next video, we'll import and we'll test our new structure and make sure it all works well.